Hey, this is LODQ, and I'm just going to go over my spell lineup and AAs that I'm currently using. For there's a guy in the guild that's trying to get back up to speed with his Necro, and a friend of his was playing it. I'm not sure the story, but bottom line is he needs to catch up. So I'm going to try to help to put a condensed version of stuff for him to catch up with. Um, so this is my main spell lineup. Is my combat spell lineup. Okay. Um, these are the names of the spells here. My undead only lineup is modified slightly by adding a cascading rune shield on, just for good measure. You could really put anything in here. You could put an extra dot maybe, or really whatever you want, depending on what the state of your pet is, what your pet focus is, and things like that. I tend to be a little conservative, so I went with the rune shield instead of an extra dot. But that's what I do. You do what you want, but that's what that really is. The burn's slow. I don't even use this. What is this anyway? Oh, that's a that's my old that's my old thing. I don't use that anymore. I've modified, streamlined this. Okay, so here's my macros that I use. Okay, here's the pet power, Fury and Fort. It's what I use for DPS now. My robe, yeah, it's the shackled. That's the T2 outer brood robe. Visible gear is what I got. This is condensed for me. I might have ADD. I don't know. Anyway, here's my invisibility to undead. This is self only. I only really play this. I very rarely group with this guy. Once in a while I will, just for a change of pace. And then this is the regular invis. As you can see, they're different. The only difference is the invisibility. I like to forage whenever I do this. If I'm not on a mount, it makes me sit. When I've FD'd to come back up, it gets me back up without doing anything. I'll demonstrate that. So I can do that here. So I'll FD. And then I hit my invis and I just come up. I can't forage because I was prone, and it doesn't cast any spells or anything to break this invis at all, because all that stuff comes before the sit command, right? And then what's after the sit is just auto inventory, and that doesn't break anything. So that's why I have the sit, these configured the way I do. Let's cover the FD stuff. All right, FD, Death Effigy, Death Piece, my old crap button. I don't always use this summon companion when I do it. I might get rid of that. The biggest thing about this is that I want to FD as well as my pet. And then whatever the situation is, the reason I have summon companion in there is to make sure, like I've said this before, that the aggro is completely cleared. Okay? So what you want to do is make sure when you get up to be able to cast this, that you're not in range of any mobs that either A, see through invis for sure, or B, when you cast something and break your invis, you're not going to get aggroed by anything. But your pet can be prone when you don't stand the pet up after it's feigned. And it only consumes 1% of your mana, and it causes all NPCs to forget about your pet. Okay, it's 100% aggro wipe. Okay, and it'll warp the pet over to exactly where you're at. Once you've done that, then you can have it stand up. After it feigns, do not have it stand up before you cast this. It's going to just create some issues with it. I mean, it'll still work, but mobs, if the aggro is not cleared from the feign that the pet did, mobs are going to come back on it, and they're going to be kind of running toward you when the pet is warped to you, and it could create a sticky situation. Okay. However you want to do that, I'll probably change this at some point and just take this out. Right, I'm not going to do it right now, but that's the logic behind my oh shit button. I already covered that. This is Levant. Levant's good to have as a backup. Get the hell out of there, kind of a thing, to wipe aggro and also save your merc if you're in a situation that matters to you. Bones Bloom. I hit this at the end of my rotation. I just go right down the line, and this does these 2 AAs here. For swarm type pets and stuff, temporary pets. It'll do Death Bloom, which I just always use now, no matter what, because I've got rune weapons on my pet. I'll cover what's on my pet visibly and go through it so you can pause the video and see what's on them. Wake the Dead is something that I put at the end because that's not always applicable, because you don't always have corpses within range for this to be used. Once this is used, if it's downed, then this will go off. This is just for something fun. The clicky on the epic, it's just for fun at this level until they give us a new epic quest. That's yeah. I'm going to go up to 7 from 1 now. That was number 8. I'm going way over here. Start as in the order I do my rotation. I pull with this. Darkness, if in case it can be snared, it'll pull whether there's it snares them or not. Sent the Thul's on here for the debuff and also possible slowing and stuff for the undead. Eradicate magic. You have to hit it twice if you want this to go off, and this will get rid of any nasty buffs that are able to be dispelled off the mob. Not all things on mobs are dispellable. I found that out. This is my pet attack button. I happen to have the ladies entreaty. That does a Tosh. It's a clicky Tosh item. Not everybody necessarily has, but I have that whenever I send my pet in, and still allies the buff that I like to put on my pet when I send him in anywhere. Gives him a extra life tap that heals for 200 or 400% of the damage value. It does like 9,500 damage. You multiply that by 4, whether it crits or not, the maximum it will heal the pet is 76k. I'm not sure if this itself, I don't think this is critical. I don't think. I haven't really noticed. I'm not a parse kind of guy, or I don't check a lot of the spell logs and melee, damage logs and stuff. So anyway, I'm trying to go quick with this because I don't want this to be super long. Dot miscellaneous is because of the different spell lineups I have. This changes a little bit, but it's always going to have the undead dot in it because they have seen that they've chosen to give us to bring this back from the dead, so to speak, and have it be usable. Okay, so if I'm fighting undead, this is great. If I'm fighting something live, then I can change it undead through a different spell set that I have, my common one, or the combat one. Right? It'll cast this. If I'm just fighting undead it'll cast the rune shield and then do the dot. If I'm fighting live mobs, I do the combat spell lineup, and it'll nuke to try to change them undead before it does that. It's not 100% to do that. Oop, when I do that. And this is the dots. I don't put the names of the dots anymore because did I put the names? I didn't put the names of these spells here because it's miscellaneous. But it's right in the spell lineup here, right? You can see what's going to go off. I go from long dots to medium dots to the short dots. What I call short dots are 7, 8, and 9, right? The venom, poison dot. These are all like, this is 42 seconds, this is 30 seconds, that's 30 seconds, this is 42 seconds. But that's cast, I put this on a little bit earlier in the cycle. Then when I've done that, I hit my bones nuke and it does what it says. It sends swarm pets in, and then it does the decree for blood, which is the thing that will trigger our synergy. Oops, that's Merc, sorry. It'll trigger the Defiler synergy, which is important whether you're by yourself or in groups. Groups like this, because it's a nice little buff it does. Damage over time or critical damage. I think they mean spell damage or critical direct damage. I guess that's spells, right? It's got to be spells. Oh, yeah, because these apply to spells. Okay, got it. Okay. Anyway, so that's that. A lot of people like that stuff. Anything that gives them bonuses, right? So you want to always cast. You want to cast this no matter what. This is in every spell lineup, as well as my call skeletons is in every spell lineup. Do not underestimate the value of the summoned of this spell right here. Okay, these skeletons stay up a good while. They can off tank if you really need them to. They're pretty hardy right now because since they've changed it, it only does 1 skeleton instead of 3, but it's a fairly beefy skeleton, and it takes a while for the mobs to chop those suckers down. So, and they got good aggro. So there. Anything else? Buff spells. I'll go over the buff spells. And while that's loading, this is Dead Man Floating. Always put this on, right? Defiler's Unity. Oh crap. Oh, hang on. There we go. Cast the highest rank of Flesh to Toxin, Shield of Memories, or Realm Side. Whatever. This is the mana. This is the mana debuff. You get, it gives you extra mana. It's basically better than anything. It doesn't give you an intelligent buff, but it gives you more mana back than the what you get from enchanters. Shield of Memories is, I think it's the standard. Yeah, it's the standard hit point defense buff that all INT casters get. Okay, but I block this Flesh to Toxin. I block this personally. I don't like how it drains my mana, or I don't like how it drains my hit points constantly. Yeah, it deals a certain amount of damage every 6 seconds. Plus, it's on a pitch count. It only lasts for 24 charges, which just might be 2 fights, 3 at the most, before you'd have to put it back on. I don't like that. I do fine without it. Okay, so here's from here down to here are what I have my buff line up here. This is the highest level. This is the DPS pet. You get this as your highest at your max level in any X pack. This is the tank pet, and you get, for this current level X pack, you get this at 122. This is a tank pet, does less damage, but it bashes. This pet, which is my current pet right here, you get at 125, and this pet will not bash, but it kicks and it backstabs. Whether it's in the back or the front, it'll do backstab damage. This does more DPS, a little less tanky than the tank pet, but it's kind of the DPS it gives is more valuable, or kind of offsets the lack in tankiness for the generally. Whatever I can tank with this pet, whatever I can tank with the tank pet, I've been able to tank with my DPS pet. That's also true from what I hear about the water pet versus the air pet for mages. You know, they usually choose the water pet because it backstabs and stuff. These right here are the two pet illusions I prefer to use. Form of Restless Spirits is that different spectral. Here, I'll just show it to you real quick. This is the default look of the pet, and Form of Restless Spirits changes it to a different kind of style, more old school style kind of specter, right? And this Form of Mottled Bone is what I like to use. You can see you can see the weapons the pet has, and it's an old school skeleton. I typically don't bother shrinking this, and it saves a little click by using this. Once in a while I'll get in the mood to put a different type of pet in there, illusion. I'd never leave it on the stock specter with the axe type thing. I always make it something else. Plus, these illusions are 4.5 hours long. The illusions that you get from the little trinkets and stuff, you know, you can get familiars and stuff, they only last 2 hours. So there's that. Once in a while, I still use those once in a while, but you know, a lot of times I just leave it like this, and it's because I know it's going to stay constant until I have to rebuff any buffs. You know, if you let your buffs run down to the, you know, pretty close, your pet's going to suddenly change its look, because the 2 hours will come to the trinkets. Anyway, there's that. This is the pet haste thing that we get. You know, it's not quite as effective as the mage's one, but it's what we got. And this is this shield here is a makes you a little tougher. Sort of helps mitigate damage if you get melee damage. I think it does spell damage too. Absorbs a certain amount of that also. Yeah, magical damage that exceeds, but you know, it helps with that. And this right here is the rune that you always want to have on you, and it gives you a little extra bump in your mana regen by 34, which is nice. And it gives you a little extra time to be able to, and this will last longer because of the mitigation you have with your other buffs. Anyway, you'll survive a couple hits before you start really losing hit points. It gives you an extra couple seconds to react to either FD or Levant or whatever you're going to do to avoid getting hit and dying. This just stays on there because it's an extra spell slot. That's the lineup. It showed you this. These are just little clickies I have that might change. This is the pet earring I have on to shrink the pet if I feel like I need to. This is another familiar that I put on because I have the hooded shuriken familiar that is the stat for the illusions. So familiars, okay, right here, stat familiar. You can set anything you want in here, and whatever illusion you do or whatever familiar you do, it'll do the buff from this item, right? So I like to have this on there whenever I do familiar. and I have it to auto leave when I'm using it to not modify my pet's looks. I've got a decent amount of these, and I got more in the bank. I just, I don't know, I just like to have these on. Generally, I'm a necro, and I like to make my pet look kind of creepy, or various types of creepy, but once in a while I'll get a little silly with it, and maybe put the skunk in there. This is a skunk, or like the mushroom guy, or brownie or something. Once in a while, bone golems are kind of cool looking. Sometimes I'll just have that on there too. Anyway, that's more fun stuff than practical. Just fun. Gift of the Grave is something, it's a permanent buff that's an AA that may not be obvious. This is enabled. Right? All you have to do is enable or disable this. This used to be like a manual thing you had to click on, but they've changed it. Anyway, this absorbs 10% of incoming direct spell damage up to a certain amount, so it helps the mitigation of spell type damage on you, not your pet, but just you. But that's that's good. I don't want to get hit by spells. And this is the mount blessing I have for the current mount I have. It's not the best mount, but it's the best mount I got, so I use that. It's Dead Man Floating, some cleric buffs there for my merc. It's my mount that I use. Let's cover mounts just real quick before I end this, okay? Here's the mounts. When you have a stat mount in there, any mount you do will do the stat buff for this mount. Once you get this on here, it'll stay on here on your character. It says duration permanent, but if you click it off, it'll go away. It's only the duration of this, and this lasts through death also. So when you get a fancy mount from either the X Pack or the market or something, you can take that mount, put it in here, or just click it on. Click on a mount, and then the buff will be on. Then you can take it out of here if you want and use it for a different character on that account, which is what I've done. It's probably on my Ranger. I can't remember what the mount looked like. It's the one from Lorian's Song. I think maybe the Outer Brood. Frankly, I'm not sure. I'll have to check. Yeah, I believe it's Lorian's Song. I haven't gotten the special thing from Outer Brood, I don't think, yet. Although I do have the clicky. I'll have to double check. I kind of forget. Anyway, you don't need to know about that. That's pretty much covers the macros, spells I use for each lineups. And this is kind of what my setup looks. And hopefully this helps somebody out. And especially helps my guildmate out I'm thinking of, as well as anybody else that might be just curious about how I play this Necro. And while I do so awesome, I'm not awesome. I'm just I get by. But it's it's better than some maybe, or just it's convenient for me. Hope it helps. All right, Elwood. I'm LWDQ, and I'm out of here. You guys have a good one. Thanks. Bye.